So welcome to the demo party for DBAs and devs. So this is who we are. My name is Danny. I'm with the Managed Instance product group. I am a product manager, and I've been since day one of the Managed Instance with the team, have seen it's evolved through all those phases, and I'm happy to be here today with you to show you a couple of demos.
Hi, my name is Nico, and I work for a couple of years now at product group with Azure SQL Managed Instance, and we are here to show you some, we think, cool demos.
All right, so let's start the party, and the party started with the good vibes, so let's continue vibing. For all of you who want to get in touch with us, we love hearing back from all of you with ideas and suggestions. Please take a snap of this QR code. And that's one of the ways to get in contact with us. And of course, we'll be at the booths all day long today and tomorrow if you want to talk to us afterwards. The first feature I want to talk about is Start-Stop. Start-Stop is something new that we have developed and deployed for Managed Instance. It allows Managed Instance to be stopped, and when it's stopped, then you are not charged for that instance. Well, you're only charged for the storage because, of course, you have your data on it. And currently, you only pay for what you need. It could be scheduled, or it could be automated. So here is an example. So either you can manually do start-stop, or you can put it on a schedule. Important to note here is that stopping Managed Instance takes only 5 minutes, but then it takes about 20 minutes to spin up a new instance and to actually attach the data storage. So that's something that you need to keep in mind when you want to schedule restarting your instance a bit earlier. So let's see the demo. All right, so here I have a managed instance. This managed instance needs to be enrolled in what we so-called November feature wave. That's how we actually enable this feature. It was our mechanism to enable early features to the customers. Start-Stop are at the top, and now we see that this instance is online. That has been started, of course. The graphics clearly show it. So if I want to stop it, I can just hit, of course, the stop button. Or I could also schedule it. So let's see. This is, by the way, pre-recorded demo for the disclosure. All right. Now, on the left-hand side, we have Start-Stop Schedule. This is where you click. And there's a wonderful scheduler here. You can select your time zone, so no more. I know that in Azure everything was UTC, so you kind of had to calculate in your head, well how far am I from UTC? But now it's easy to select your time zone, and within your time zone, you can pick a day of the week or days of the week, start time, stop time, and that's all configurable. You can add the rows, so you can have different schedules. You can delete the rows if you do not need them, and likewise you can also edit those rows if that is something that's needed. To create, it's easy. Just click on plus. Let's say, hey, I want to start it on Friday. You type in the time. Let's say 7 a.m. and then Friday, and then whenever you want to stop it, let's say at 4 p.m. Go create, and there it is, another item simply added onto that. So that's how easy it is to do the start-stop, and I hope that's something that will save you money. The next thing I want to talk about is license-free failover groups, and let me just give an introduction of what failover groups are. Within MI world, we have a DR system between two MIs that you can set up. We call it failover groups. There are essentially two managed instances, let's say MI1 and MI2, that are deployed in different Azure regions. And all the data then gets replicated from MI1 to MI2, and there is automated or manual failover between them. So what this benefit is, if for the secondary managed instance, if you're using it as a passive replica, that means you're not using it for any workloads, then we have extended a new benefit that you do not pay for the license fees for your secondary replica. On the slide here, we have just the structure of the costs. So the MI is priced in terms of the infrastructure costs, which is the vCores, the compute, the CPU used, and the storage, and license costs. So this license cost will be shaved off. So let's see now how this works. So in this setup, I have two managed instances, setup and failover group. This is MI1, and then I have MI2. And then under data management, I can see that those two instances are connected in failover group. There, one is North America, the other is in Europe, replicating the data between them. And the summary is something new that we have built. You can see that for primary and secondary, we have license details. So for primary, we have Azure Hybrid Benefit used. And for secondary instances, pay-as-you-go. That means that you pay for the license, and then we see that this benefit is off. There are two ways how to enable this benefit. One is within this screen where you edit configuration, and then you say, hey, I want to save on my secondary, and you enable it here. What you do need to do is to confirm that you're using it as secondary replica to get this benefit. So this is one way of actually achieving that. There's another way. If you go to the standard place where you configure compute and storage, which is this portion here, and you have the pricing summary also in there, we built this new button, failover rights, which shows only on the secondary instance, of course. And here we see that actually there's no discount, and for this instance, it's pretty expensive, right? $2,000 in this example. So I want to turn on the failover rights. I again need to confirm this is for legal reasons that you're using this instance as a secondary standby replica. And then I click apply, and it's pretty quick, but what I can see, if I scroll up immediately, that the pricing has been updated. I've been given discount for the licenses, $583, so I have achieved significant savings. So I really do hope that these savings is something that you can use, and that that MI is a good destination and more affordable to you. And there's a smiley. Thank you.
Great features. All right. Okay. This microphone. I need to be near the microphone. Let's see if I can manage that. All right. Let me talk to you about the feature what is called private endpoint. Anyone here has ever used a private endpoint? Please raise your hand. Oh, a lot of people. Who has used this feature for Azure SQL Managed Instance already? Okay, yeah. At least one colleague has pointed. We have officially, finally, released this feature in the public preview. And let me explain you a couple of the details and show you this feature. So you can connect to managed instance by using the private link from today on. There are three ways to connect applications to managed instance. You can use the default, the VNet local endpoint. So you basically connect from the local VNet. It can be exposed via peering, VPN gateway, or some appliances such as a firewall. This is something that comes by default. You have to do nothing. Then you can open ever dangerous and popular public endpoint, and then you can use the network security groups or NSGs or Azure Firewall or Network Manager in order to prevent undesired connections. I would say it's a choice. And then there is a private link. Private link, if you want to connect a specific application in a specific VNet or subnet to your Azure SQL Managed Instance as a direct link. No peering, no gateways, and it gets you also a fixed IP address. So let's take a look about some of the scenarios that you will get by using the private link. So for those scenarios, you can also use the hub and spoke topology and publisher consumer, for example, if you are ISV. A great advantage is that you will spend less IPs. So here on my screen, on the left side, you can see a managed instance. On the right side, you can see a VNet for my application, and then a virtual machine where I have installed a management studio. They are located in different VNets. Let's try to find out what we need to do to connect them. So when you look, it's a different location, and I probably cannot. As you can see, I try to connect to Managed Instance with Management Studio. It didn't work. What should I do? Let's establish a private link with a private endpoint. On the Managed Instance side, let's go to the private endpoint connection, create one, specify the name, you can change the network interface name, and then you will need to select the region not of the Managed Instance, but of your application where you want to connect to, or from, more correct. Then verify that the right Managed Instance is selected in the right VNet. Then make sure that the subnet of your application inside the VNet is also rightfully selected. We'll give you the choice of the statically or dynamically allocated IP address. Let's go forward. Then the DNS integration. Right now, you can just keep the no on the integrating private DNS zone. With time, you will be able to do it out of the box, a very fast and comfortable provisioning. Review, maybe add some tags, and create a private endpoint. Pow! It's done. Is it? Well, you will still not be able to connect because you didn't set up the DNS zone. So let's go to our VNet and pick up the IP address that needs to be used in order to configure the DNS zone, because we will be missing just a little bit with the DNS. Let's go and create the private DNS zone. Let's select the right resource group. Let's give it a nice name. And then we are going to pick a very important part is the DNS zone from the name of the URL that you're using to connect to Managed Instance. So let's click forward and fast forward. We are creating this. It's been deployed. What is the next step? You need to add a DNS-A record. Not a record, but record which is named A. So let's copy-paste the name of our Managed Instance so we have the full URL. Then we copy the IP address to make the connections. Voila, it's done. Now we are ready to have the full private endpoint with a private link. Oh, sorry, not yet, I forgot. The virtual network link is still missing. We add a new virtual network link. We specify the name. We select the right virtual network, which is the application network, and now we are done. So after it is being provisioned, these 3 steps, we can go back to our Managed Instance and attempt again to connect via the private endpoint, and now it really works. If you want to learn more, go to AKMS SQLMI private link, and today officially it's in the public preview.
So just exclusively for SQL bits, yeah, today.
Exclusive, as I say. All right, let's talk about the next demo. This is ADLS virtualization. What does ADLS stands for? Anybody knows? Azure Data Lake Storage, and it also actually includes the blob storage as well. Let's take a look at the demo. Let's talk about the data virtualization in Azure SQL Managed Instance. We are providing you with quite an impressive amount of space, like 16 terabytes on both service tiers. But sometimes you need to query external data that was stored somewhere outside. Sometimes you need to explore the data, and you can do it with Polybase or with some other tools on SQL Server. On Managed Instance, we introduced you an opportunity to do this and much more with ADLS virtualization. Here is some virtualization of some imaginary company during the COVID that analyzes their gains. Let's go and see how the number of COVID cases at the time has affected it. Let's grab a publicly available data set, and by using the open row set, we can go and directly query it. We support Parquet, CSV, and JSON formats. So you can see it's a real data, and when we go to the execution plan, you will notice it's a remote scan. This data is not on SQLMI. It's not on remote storage of SQLMI. It's totally outside. You can set up any ADLS storage for this purpose. So we get some data. What else can we do it? Let's try and discover, like any good ETL worker would do, what are the data types for each of the columns. For that, let's use SP describe first result set function, available since SQL Server 2012. You get it all. But look, I got all those varchar 8000. Raise your hand if you love varchar 8000 or 50. Ooh, yeah. Now, let's go and see the real max length of that data. So max and length function, traditionally, as you would use to explore. Now, let's do something better. Let's create an external file format for Parquet, define the location, and use CTAS. Create external table by pointing to my Parquet file and specifying all the right things in the table definition. Now, it's just a regular SQL query. You don't have to change your code. Your application will still function, and you get all the same data. And as my colleague Sasha was just explaining on the previous version, we support partition elimination, predicate push down on the Parquet, which is a column store format. So what can we do? Let's fix this data. Let's filter out all the nows and show only the data for the United States. We created a view. Here you go. All the data is filtered, and it still runs well. And the more data we filter out successfully, the faster it will run. Back to our Power BI desktop, let's add this view to our data set. Let's load it. Let's create a relation as to connect to our sales table already available. Let's map it, validate, load the data, get back to the visualization part, and now we can expand and add the confirmed number of cases. And we will notice that at the first time, it's kind of like it was affecting very positively our sales, but then when the second, third, whatever number of the waves were coming, our sales have lowered. We might reconsider our business strategy. Let's say that was the analysis. So what is an ADLS of virtualization? It's an evolution of the Polybase. I know all of you love installing and configuring Polybase, and troubleshooting as well. So it's a shared technology. Our sister team in MDCS in Serbia has developed it for Synapse. But right now, you can get it in 2022 SQL Server, in Synapse, and in Managed Instance. Can we get it in DB?
No.
Not yet. For more information, go to AKMS SQLmi/data virtualization. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? We're around. Thanks.
Oh, by the way, we just forgot. If you want to learn some cool tips, go to AKMS SQLmi how-to for some cool tips and continue the demo party. At the AKMS SQLmi YouTube, we opened our YouTube channel, and every single week we post 2 to 3 videos recorded by our field people and by the product manager.
That's actually us, right, behind the mask?
Now you will need to guess who of us is who with those nice effects that our colleague Sasha has added. Otherwise, thank you so much for this 20 minutes demo session. And
SQL Bits requires us to have the session evaluation. It's my understanding that for each 10 feedbacks submitted to SQL Bits, there will be a tree planted. So let's help those trees grow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a nice SQL Bits. Kill the dragons.